Shalom all. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah school at KosherTorah.com. Here to fulfill with you, Be'ezrat Hashem, what for me at least is a rare opportunity mitzvah. Now, my rare opportunity mitzvah is this. I am fulfilling the mitzvah we recite every day in the Kriyat Shema, Veshinantam, and you shall teach them. We say, meaning, when you're on the road. I am on the road tonight, and it's very, very rare when I ever get the opportunity to actually give a class while I'm in the middle of traveling. So right now, I am in somewhere in the rural areas of Virginia. So I am in a hotel tonight, and I'm going to share with you my story. Before we go and discuss exactly how we use the name YHWH in meditation, let me share with you a technique or an understanding of the way of how Hashem works. So, let me begin with previously before Shabbat. It is Wednesday night now. On Friday afternoon, as I was going through my email, I'd got a very curious email from, of all things, my credit card company. My credit card company, of all things, this is the first time it's ever really happened. Curious, isn't it? Sends me, congratulations, I'm such a good customer, blah, blah, blah. They've doubled my credit on my credit cards. And now I have thousands of dollars there. And I'm saying, oh, that's curious. I didn't ask for any kind of an increase. I don't remember doing anything that would have earned such an increase. I don't even remember ever it happening before. But all of a sudden, there it is. I stood back and I said, I smell a rat. Something's up. It's written in the Gemara, in the Masechet Megillah, Daf Yud Gimel Amud Bet 13b, that before God inflicts the disease, He always provides the cure. So I'm sitting there, like I said, I smell a rat. I said, all right, if all of a sudden there's money available, I said, something's going to happen or I'm going to need it. I just know it. It's going to happen. Okay. Tov. So I sit and I wait. Comes Sunday, after being apart for so long, we went back to Tennessee to pick up our beloved pups. Those of you who've been with me here at KosherTorah, you know, we're raising German Shepherds. We have 3 of them. Good old Tex, our male, Sierra, our female, and their little girl, Ginger. So we went down to Tennessee, drove the, 11, 12-hour drive, and thank God, picked them up. Everything was well. That was Sunday. Now to Monday. Okay, remember, today's Wednesday. So here's the story. Leave Tennessee Monday morning. Everything is fine. The dogs are in the back of the truck. Everything is fine. No problems whatsoever. We're about 250 miles, ballpark, out of Tennessee. It's about noontime ballpark. And all of a sudden on the interstate, all the lights on my dashboard start going off. This is going wrong. That's going wrong. Everything. And all of a sudden, foot to the pedal, my engine dies. Thank God, I'm able to pull off to the road. Not a problem. You know, the engine's all smoking and everything else. And I was just shy of the exit. Now, I have AAA. I'm a good Boy Scout. I prepare for things like this, so it's not a problem. So I said to myself, all right, I have AAA. I'll call AAA. We'll get a tow. But then as I looked up to that exit that I said I was just short of, I noticed there was a gas station there. So I said, gee, I wonder if I can get the truck up there. The truck just heaved dead. Turned the engine, started right up again. Son of a gun. I got off, made it to the gas station, not a problem. And as we did, surprisingly, there was this great guy who was there, and he comes up and says, hi, I'm a mechanic. I see you're having problems. Can I help? He goes under the hood. He goes under the truck. He's looking, says, you got this problem. You got that problem. He says, you got to get to a garage. I said, fine. like I said, not a problem. I was going to call AAA. I called AAA. They said, yeah, it's going to take a few hours to get there, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, you're on the road. These things happen. Okay, Hodu Lashem, we say. They give thanks to God. So I walk into the gas station. There was a little restaurant there. And I asked them, is there some kind of a garage around? Because the mechanic guy said there was just one or two parts that if I could get, he could possibly help. So the woman looks at me like I'm nuts. I said, why you look at me like I'm nuts? Oh, yes, but where's the garage? So she says, it's out the back door. I go out and behind the restaurant, behind the gas station there, and the county garage is right there, right in front of me. So I walk in. Turns out the guy, he's the tow truck operator. He's waiting for the call to tow me. And there I am, right there, ready for him. So we're waiting for the call. Nothing comes. He looks at the truck and he says, yeah, okay, you need to go, to a Ford dealer. They'll be able to take care of it right away. He says, by the way, it's just one right down the road, about 15 minutes. So I said, how convenient. And he says, you know what? Rather than wait for the call, come, I'll just take you down there. So takes my truck, puts it on the bed of his tow, boom. 20 minutes later, we are at the Ford dealer. Not a problem. Everything seems to be going pretty smoothly. So I go into the Ford dealer. He said, well, take care of the truck. I said, but look, I'm traveling now. I got my kid with me, my son. I have our 3 dogs. I got to get back to Tennessee. I got 500 miles or whatever I got to drive. And I said, no problem. Right across the street over there, rent a car. Again, coincidence, convenience. A walk across the street. Hi, I'm a stranded motorist. I need a vehicle. Lovely gal behind the counter says, funny you should say, I have only one vehicle left in all the property. Boom. 10 minutes later, I rented a car. I go across. It's like this little Hyundai car. My son and I, we take the front, we throw all the dogs, squish them into the back seat. Now remember, we have 3 German Shepherds. Tex is at least 100 pounds. Sierra and Ginger at least 65, 75 pounds apiece. They squeeze into the back of this little car. And off we go. And thank God we made it home. Not a problem. We lost some time, but every single thing was prepared in advance. Every single step of the way happened like clockwork. And I'm sitting there smiling. I say to God, I said, you did this. I said, you made all these things happen one step after another. Hodu Lashem Kitov. But we're not done with the story yet. All right? I got something very interesting, so let's move on. So I call back to the dealer, and they say, oh, we fixed the car. Thank God, they said to me, I'm under extended warranty. Remember, I said I'm a Boy Scout. I prepare for these things. Saved myself hundreds of dollars. All right? The entire fixing would have cost me maybe $100. Even the rented car, I could get deducted with insurance. But then they told me something. It's very lucky you brought it in when you did, because they discovered something else that I didn't know about. Now, that wasn't covered on the warranty, but they were able to fix it. They had all the parts in it, and thank God. All right, the vehicle is ready. They called me up. I didn't want to drive 7 hours all the way down, 7 hours all the way back, and God forbid miss the class, okay? I'm hoping the sound, we had a problem when I recorded last time with my phone. I tested this, so I'm hoping the sound here is okay. But anyway, so I left this afternoon from Allentown. I'm all the way down Virginia now. And the car's going to be ready tomorrow morning. Thank God they found what was wrong. Remember I said my credit went up? Well, the thing that they discovered that was wrong was not covered. And I got to pay for that. And the credit, the $1,000 or whatever it's going to cost, it was right there. Available even before I discovered a problem. That's the way God works. Now, for those of you who know me personally, I'm also a gym rat. So I drove until night. I was tired. I took a little nap before class so we could be awake. And I just pulled in to the first hotel. It's a nice place I'm in, whatever. And took a nap, and I said, up in the morning. But what do I do in a hotel? What do I do if I'm in a strange area? What is there to do? Well, you got to remember, I'm a religious guy. I don't social things like that. I don't go to restaurants. But the one thing that you know I always do, I look for a gym. So I went in, and I said, Gold's Gym, I'm a member of Gold's Gym, near me. Well, what do you know? There's a Gold's Gym a half mile down the road from where I'm staying right now. I did not know that. You see, this is the hand of God. God provides, God directs. Now, what does all this mean? I don't know how many of you are familiar with what we call the archetypes, the psychological archetypes of what they call the tarot cards. Okay? In the tarot cards, there is one card called the Fool. All right? He corresponds to the letter Aleph. Aleph, as you know, is the one thing that's always silent. And the picture of the Fool is a guy who literally has his eyes up to heaven, and he's walking this dark, deadly, dangerous path, all kinds of monsters and everything coming after him. It reminds me of the words of the Psalm, where it says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for God is with me. That is the way of Hashem. Now, what it means to be a fool is something, I guess in the eyes of those people who don't understand emunah, faith, I guess living by emunah is being a fool. But I say to you this, and I share with you my experience to help you understand that when you turn to Hashem, when you turn to God and transcend all of the foolish mythologies that we associate with God through religion, through everything else, and recognize that we're dealing with the universal way of things, okay? In the Torah tradition, and we've discussed this in previous classes, we spend so much focus on what we call halacha. Halacha doesn't mean law, even though that's how it's applied. It means the way. In the Chinese Taoist tradition, they refer to the Tao, okay? The universal way of things. We refer to the universal Torah, the way that Hashem ordains and orders the universe. Go look back at our previous classes. I discussed this in greater detail than I'm going to now. But one thing that I want to focus on now is to connect you to the universal halacha. And the way that we do that is a very practical way. This is the foundation of that which we call the Aliyah, the Ascent school of Kabbalah, which in Talmudic times was called Ma'aseh Merkava, the work of the chariot. What does that mean, the work of the chariot? It's based upon Ezekiel's vision, Ezekiel chapter 1. When people come to meditate, and people want to bond with God, everybody misunderstands what it's all about. You think, because that's what it looks like, that you're out to experience some kind of sound and light entertainment show. That you want to go and recite certain holy names, and all of a sudden the skies are going to open, and these big 50-foot angels are going to be showing up, and there's going to be all kinds of sounds and visions and all this kind of really cool stuff that you only wish you had a cell phone to videotape so you could upload it to the internet, because wow, that would be really cool. And my friends on Ancient Aliens would be really proud of me if I could ever record such a thing, blah, blah, blah. Well, let me tell you, after 30 plus years of experience in doing this, I can tell you that's not the way it works. For those of you who don't know my experiences, which I've shared in many of my courses, let me tell you the difference between me and my peers. When the books teach about certain chants, Shemot Kodeshim, holy names, and you're supposed to do certain rituals and the like, they always say how dangerous these things are, and you're never supposed to do it. Well, most of my peers, my fellow rabbis, never do this stuff, and therefore they never get off the ground. Me, I'm the crazy one, in case you haven't realized that by now. My desire for experience to know was so strong, I was willing to sacrifice my life. I said, I'm going to die. So be it. And years ago, in the good old days before I even moved to Chicago, I was living out in the woods in Iowa. I did all the prepared rituals. This, I'll get to that in just a minute. I did all the prepared rituals, the fasting, the clothing, the mikvah, everything. And I did all the 72 triad names of gods with all the malachim, with all the unities, with the name YHWH A, in appropriate chants, sound, abolafia techniques, vital techniques, everything. Dramatic pause. Nothing happened. I was floored. I was expecting, big 50-foot angels to be coming ripping the roof off my house. 2-night holiday. Did it again the second night. Nothing happened. I was very disappointed. I must not have been holy, I thought. I must not be worthy. A couple days went by, and as my tradition, I sat there in meditation, and all of a sudden, I jerked up just like that. My hand was shaking like this, right? A little pen, you see, pen and paper here, hotel stuff. And all of a sudden, it picked up, and I wasn't even aware of what was going on. All of a sudden, my hand was like this, writing. I'm sitting there watching myself. What the hell's going on? I didn't understand. And then it stopped. And I said, what the blazes just happened to me? And I looked over the pages and I had to rewrite them out so I could actually read what I wrote. And it actually made sense. This came to me over and over and over again, day after day, for almost a month. When it was all done, I had a book. And that is exactly the story how my book, my first book, Call Upon My Name, that I published in 1993, was written. Today they call that automatic writing, channeled literature. I did make connection. I did ascend. I just didn't understand what it meant to do so. Because looking at the books, reading from the outside, I could only see what we call especloria she'ina mi'ira, the outside, which you could not see through clearly. It was only when I was on the inside that I started to understand what happened. God blessed. And we found the financing. I published Call Upon My Name. And that is how our KosherTorah school, originally Yeshivat B'nai Nevi'im, was founded. It was based upon the Gemara, Pesachim, where Hillel says, though we're not Nevi'im, we're not prophets, we're their children. And that was our name for years and years until we started our KosherTorah.com website. And actually, the way we got our name was from our program, Ancient Aliens. When they wanted the subtitle, I said, well, I'm Rabbi Tzadok from KosherTorah.com. They said, you can't put that. Put KosherTorah Schools. I said, fine. And so many people couldn't pronounce our Hebrew name. I just said, let's have an English name and keep it simple. So that way, it's easy for people to understand. Now, I share with you my experiences, because when we want to come to understand clearly how to use the name of God, how to practically practice the Aliyah school, the Ascent school, the experiential school, I don't want to just show you what's written in the books. That's not good enough. I want to share with you how you understand the books. Again, let me veer off to share with you a story. Many, many years ago, when I was studying in Yerushalayim, I had the great honor of studying in Bet El Yeshiva and Rehov Rashi. This was at a time when all the Mikubalim actually got along with one another. Hacham Shmuel Darzi was there, Shalom Hadaya was there, and even Rav Kaduri was there. I had the zchut and the merit to be with them. All right, I'm going to tell you a story. This is a story I've told before, and it just popped into my mind. It wasn't the original story I was going to tell you, but it popped in, so I believe that that's what it's meant to be. For those of you who might remember way back into the 1970s, okay? I know some of you weren't even born yet. Star Wars, the original Star Wars. I lived on Long Island at the time, And I remember my buddies telling me I got to see this movie. And I went to the Hicksville movie theater on Old Country Road. And this is the day before you could like buy tickets online. You had to stand online. They had a line going around the block. The only time I could get in to see Star Wars, I remember, was a Thursday evening at midnight show. And even then I had to wait 2 hours online. Fine. I got in there sitting up front. And those of you might remember in the good old days, this was the first time they had the big screen, Dolby sound. Remember, this is 70s stuff, right? You see the big ship coming over, through the screen. You were hooked. Anybody who saw the original Star Wars was hooked. Well, this time I was already religious. I was studying, always desiring to study mysticism because that's just my soul was all about. So the teachings and topic of the Force always meant something to me. Now, let's move ahead some years. By the time The Empire Strikes Back came out into the theaters, I'm already in Yerushalayim. I'm Haredi, all right? You know what? For those of you who don't know Haredi, I'm a long black coat, big black hat. I'm studying in the yeshiva, the Mikubalim. I'm a very, very strict, ultra-Orthodox guy. But I so much wanted to see The Empire Strikes Back. So what I did could have gotten me in a lot of trouble. I literally put some secular clothing. Remember, I was black coat, black hat. Threw it out the window where I was living. Made up a story that I was going out to Kollel, learning at night. Snuck into the bushes, changed, ran like into a different neighborhood, caught a bus so I can go and see the movie. Now, Empire Strikes Back. For those of you who are not familiar with the film, this is the movie in which Luke Skywalker character received training in the Force from Yoda. Well, Yoda was teaching Luke about feeling the Force and letting it flow through you. Those words hit my gut like a sledgehammer. I was studying Kabbalah. I had the merit of sitting with some of the great Mikubalim in Yerushalayim. And I was studying Kitve Hari, and I was good at it. Maybe I still am, depending on who you ask, I guess. The next day, and this is the truth now, I was so hurt by knowing there was feelings that I just wasn't getting the true Kabbalah. I built up my courage. 2-3 days later, I made an appointment to see Shmuel Darcy, who was one of the big Mikubalim at the time. He invited me over to his house. I sat in his living room with him. He served me some fruit, vegetables, and they were all peeled. Shmuel Darcy, God rest his soul, always reminded me of Darth Vader. He had that deep, rocky voice. And I looked at him. I said, "No, Mazeh, what's this?" And he says, "Anachnu lo ochlim klipot b'bayit hazeh." He says, "We don't eat klipot." Everything was peeled, so they removed the peel, the klipa. Okay, and I looked at him because he was my teacher. He was the Magid Shi'ur who I was learning with. And I said to him, "Kavod Harav, Rabbi, you're holding back from me. You're not telling me the truth about the Kabbalah. What are you holding back? I don't feel anything. I need to know." He looked at me with like those deep, dark eyes of his. And what do you think he asks me? He doesn't ask me, what am I talking about? Can I explain? He says to me like this, "Who told you this?" "Mir malacha etzeh," he says. "Who told you this?" It's the one question I can't. What am I going to tell him? This little green guy named Yoda from Dagobah? That would have been the end of me. I couldn't tell him. That's the one question I could not answer. So we went back and forth and back. I couldn't answer. Finally, left. Now, for the rest of the story. A couple days go by. I'm walking into Bet El through the back. I'm sitting down by the bathroom, and in the opposite corner of the yeshiva was Rav Kaduri, Rav Darzi. Rav Kaduri gets up, and he's being escorted by Hacham Hadaya, who was the Rosh Yeshiva. He owned the yeshiva. And You're walking to the bathroom. What do? The rabbi walks by, you stand up and you show kavod. So, dramatic pause there. Rav Adai says to me, no, sit down. He says, the rabbi's coming to give you a bracha. Coming to give me a bracha? He's coming to me? Really? Sits down, puts his hands, does all the bracha stuff, walks back to the other side. We daven mincha, mariv, and then afterwards I go to take my place and sit in the class. But then I'm told, you can't study here anymore. This is not your place anymore. We've made arrangements for you to study somewhere else. Shalom Aleichem. I was heartbroken. I said, oh my gosh. The Rav was ticked off at me because of that conversation I had. I'm kicked out. My career. I think we had a little glitch there, for a disconnect. I hope that we're okay. But anyway, telling my story again. The next day, I go into this new yeshiva, and this is where I got my smicha, my Tudat Hora'ah from Rav Yaakov Peretz Shlita. And, you know, when you're in a kollel learning for smicha, there's a bunch of younger guys, everybody's tough and strict and, you know, really cool and stuff. And there's this old guy sitting there, and he asked, you know, comes up to me, starts talking, says, where are you from? And I said, Yeshivat Bet El. And he goes, oh, you studied with the Mekubalim. And I said, yes, I did. And he starts asking me questions. Did you study the Shara Kavanot? And I said, but of course. He said, did you study the Rushe Shabbat? And I said, but of course. Did you study the Rushe Mincha of Shabbat? And I said, but of course. He starts asking me question after question after question. And the questions were getting harder and harder and harder. And then I said to him, wait a second. Where is this coming from? How do you even know to ask these questions? What you're asking me is not written in any book anywhere. Who are you? He took me by the hand and he said to me words I'll never forget. Beni, achshav sheta lamadet ma katuv b'sfarim, ani lemed lecha ech lahabinam. My son, now that you've learned what's written in the books, I'll teach you how to understand it. This man was Rebbe Meir Levi, my teacher. Rebbe Meir Levi was Rav Darzi's original teacher before he went to Rav Kadori. I wasn't kicked out. I was promoted. And I was received into the panimiyut of the study. And Rebbe Meir Levi, God rest his soul, taught me how to understand, how to practice. And this is where I received my original reception of the Aliyah school. And that is all these years later what I share with you now. I share with you from my experiences because, again, Rebbe Meir and I learned one-on-one. And for those of you who are members of my KosherTorah school student body, you know, part and parcel of being a member of student of my school is for thanking you for your support for our school. I give you the best thing I can, at least what I think, and that's my time. I work with my students individually. When you have questions, you call me. Now, don't try this if you're the general public. I don't have time for everybody in the general public. Everybody in the general public always wants everything. For my students who are there for me, I'm there for them. You want access, you want to work with me? Work with me. I'll work with you. That's just the way it works. Become a contributing student. Become a member of our school so I can be there. But what I want to share with you now, with all my stories, with all these things that I'm sharing with you, is to help you understand the reality of things. Many people believe that you get close to God by being superficially, externally religious. Nothing could be further from the truth. Actually, it actually pushes people away because they get the fantasy and the delusion without the reality. I'm a very real person. For those of you who know me individually, you know I'm a very down-to-earth human being. I work at a Gold's Gym. I ride a Harley Davidson. I play with my German Shepherd dogs. I work at martial arts. I don't care. I'm as comfortable in jeans and t-shirt as I am in a suit and tie. Suit and tie. For those of you who remember when I was living in Tennessee for all those years, suit and tie. I thought I did tshuva. I'd never have to do that again. God works in strange ways. He brought me out of my beautiful retirement, my solitude, and he brings me back because I guess that's what I'm needed to do. So here we are, and the future awaits. A new Rabbanit awaits, and all these things are coming down the pike. So, like I say, you look at things that happen with the truck, you see things that are happening along the way, and everything happens. I share with you my story because there is as much to learn from that than anything there is from the books. The one important teaching that I put in Walking in the Fire, as well as in my original book, Call Upon My Name, was what you can expect. This is what I'm teaching you now. Practically speaking, when we use the name Yud K Vav K in meditation, the technique is simple. It's even written in halacha. Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. I place God before me always. Close your eyes. You visualize the letters Yud K Vav K. And I teach people a technique which in modern psychology is called active imagination. Active imagination is a technique that Aliyah speaks about in Sefer Cheshek. The Sufi in Islam practice this all the time, where in which you interact in your mind with that which you're receiving, projecting. Okay? Aliyah says you actually make it up as you go along, and as you're doing that, you're jump-starting the unconscious to channel its content, of course, through what we call the klipot, psychology known as your subconscious. And you have to deal with these things until you can get clarity of mind, clarity of channel from the unconscious. What's that unconscious again called? Oh, that's right. Your higher self. Or, point that the Gaon of Vilna makes very clear, the Ariel before that, that's what we call your magid, your spiritual guide. In order to connect with God, God's not out there somewhere. God's within. And God within connects with you within. So you, I, we, whoever, the individual needs to connect with one's own inner self, because one's inner self is what's connected with God. So by connecting to the inner self, one connects with God, which is connected to the inner self. That's the way it works. But you got all this garbage in the way. What do you do with it? How do you get rid of it? How do I get clarity in my mind? Well, when Ezekiel needed clarity, it said he had to go through the storm, the cloud, and the fire. Elijah had that same issue, and you speak about Elijah in a cave. This is a psychological process wherein which the conscious mind, as it projects into meditation, needs to dig up, deal with, and overcome the subconscious content, which we call klipot, the husks, the shells, the bad stuff within us, which, because we're going into the unconscious mind, is going to materialize in that primitive form of mind thought, which is imagery. And this is where all the images of our inner demons and monsters and bad come from. It's not like you get little demons with pitchforks out there going to get you. That's a whole bunch of fantasy. And you need to see it. You need to experience it. We need to rectify these things. So, what's there? How do I know? Well, this is exactly what Chaim Vital teaches in the Ruach HaKodesh. For those of you who are watching this video now on Facebook, you will see on my Facebook page, I already linked to 2 of my classes that I taught from Ruach HaKodesh about how to use the name Yud K Vav K. I teach this same technique in my book, Walking in the Fire, available on Amazon.com. And I will share with you just the basics of it now. When you look at the name in your mind's eye, Yud K Vav K, I ask my private students, one-on-one, remember, Tractate Hagigah, Masechet, Hagigah in the Gemara, Mishnah actually. When you teach Maseh Merkabah, it's one-on-one. And even then, you got to have a little understanding in your own, because it's psychology. It's psychoanalysis. It's a spiritual psychoanalysis. Sages in the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wrote the Mishnah. He understood this. So, when you look at the name Yud K Vav K, I, using again the Abulafian technique of active imagination, tell you project, interact, dialogue with the letters. When you look and see the letters, Yud Ke Vav Ke, what do you see? What color are the letters? What form? What shape? If you could reach out in your imagination, your mind's eye, and touch it, what would it feel like? How big is it? If you could go up to the letters and talk to them, are they like little itsy bitsy letters? Are they big as a mountain? What is your personal experience with the letter? Each letter, go up to them, talk to them one by one. Hi, Shalom Aleichem Yud, how are you? Hi, hey. Well, what does a letter mean? Well, in my book, Walking in the Fire, I outline all of the different archetypes, the meanings of each and every letter corresponding to the worlds, etc., and so on. So you have some basic intellectual understanding. And then it's up to you. Because everybody sees things differently. Why? Because we are each unique individuals. Unique individual human beings. If you remember the famous teaching that there are 70 faces to the Torah, Shivim Panim la Torah. Well, that's been expanded. Okay? The Ariel says there are Shishim Rabo Panim. All right? Same thing that's written in Emek HaMelech by Rabbi Bakarak. Right? Shivim Panim, same thing as Shishim Rabo, meaning every human soul has their own unique understanding and perception of the Torah. For those of you who study in traditional Torah Judaism, choose any topic that you want. How many different books are available on it? In my day, when I started studying Kabbalah, there weren't that many Kabbalistic books out in the Hebrew bookstores. I remember going to Beagle Eisen's bookstore way back in the 70s, and there's maybe one or two books available on Kabbalah. Today, shelves and shelves and shelves, all new stuff that's been coming out because there's an explosion. People desperate to expand consciousness. They're seeing everything from the outside, desperate to get in. That's what we're trying to help people do here. This is the technique. We start with the name, Yud Ke Vav Ke, and we proceed with the end. So this is what people need to understand, how it works. This is what I want you to start practicing. When you see the letters, Yud Ke Vav Ke, you have to keep like a little spiritual diary and ask yourself, what does this mean to me? What do I see when I interact? And then, again, this is what Chaim Vital teaches in our Ruach HaKodesh. The name becomes an archetype, a source through which your own unconscious and subconscious is reflected back to you. This is how an archetype is used. You're familiar, of course, with the Rorschach test in psychology, ink blot tests, where in which, there's nothing really there other than ink blots. But when you look at them, your mind sees things in them. And the psychologist writes it all down. This guy's not a loony. Hopefully not. But that's the way it works. For those of you who don't know anything about things like tarot cards or anything else, this is how it all works. There's no divination involved. There's no fortune telling involved. It's all psychology. And psychology is the development of the psychic powers of expanding the mind and consciousness. This is what Rambam teaches, believe it or not, Mara Nebuchim. We talk about expanding the powers of the neshama, higher neshama, receiving higher levels of neshama. That means expanding consciousness. That means developing the psychic powers of the mind. That means tapping into the unconscious. The unconscious, again, is your neshama, your higher self, your higher soul, which is already existing in multiple parallel dimensions of reality at this very moment. And all you need is access. But you don't have access because you got so much junk that's blocking the way. Got to get rid of it all. So when you look and gaze within, name Yud Ke Vav Ke, Esh Ochla, it's a burning fire. It's going to reflect to you all that junk that you need to deal with. And that is how we do personal tikkun, rectification. This is what we call the kavanot of the Merkabah. Again, I teach this in great detail in my book, walking in the fire. I've taught this. I would love to go into your individual communities, and I'd be more than happy to teach the Kavanot to the Merkava. And just in case you think this is all wild and deep Kabbalah, recognize that none less than Rabbi Yosef Haim of Baghdad, the famous Ben Ish Hai, he brings this down as halacha in the book Sefer Ben Ish Hai. Right? It teaches you exactly how to do it. A lot of the different Sephardi Sidurim have the order of the Kavanot of the Merkava written in a prayer form. And people recite it every day. It's a very simple, watered down, basic way of doing things, but it works. It's a beginning. So therefore, using the name to help you experience your own inner content, to come in touch with your own inner spirit guide, your own inner higher self, your own inner neshama. That is what we're talking about. That is how this is done. And here we are right now, coming into the Hebrew month of Elul, preparing for Rosh Hashanah, where the scales of Libra are going to balance. Of course, that's what Rosh Hashanah is all about. This is the way that you do it. Refining your soul, going into the truth. We call the Ascent, the Aliyah school of Kabbalah. Originally in the Gemara, it was called Yordei Merkava, not going up, going down into the unconscious, going down into the inner recesses of oneself. This is what real hit bodedut, mental isolation, was all about. As Avraham, the son of Rambam, wrote in his book Hamaspik Lovdei Hashem. In all due respect, whether the Breslovers practice to the hit bodedut is just icing on the cake, the most superficial of ways. There's a much deeper, truer, penetrating, transformational way. And I invite you here through our KosherTorah school to experience this for yourselves. So, that's what I had to share with you tonight. I'm on the road somewhere in Virginia on the way to go pick up my truck, fulfilling the commandment to teach God as I'm on the way. Not exactly what I planned this morning or last week or whatever, but God knows the way. Life is a long road, and only God knows the way. I just try to enjoy the ride as I go along with it, and I invite you to come along with me at our KosherTorah school. So I want to thank you again all for joining me. I wish you all blessings, shalom, and God bless. I'll see you all online. Thanks again. Ariel Tzadok from the KosherTorah school. Good night. How do I finish this? It's not turning off.